Game 2 on the floor of Worthen Arena this Friday pins two in-state opponents against each other. IU Indy hopes to replicate its 100-plus point performance from Game 1 against a Ball State defense who held its first opponent to less than 50. Welcome into the studios of Ball State University for the TableX Pregame Show. I'm JJ Grexton. That's Jordan Climbs. Jordan, thank you for being here with me tonight.
Hey, of course, we got a nice stretch going. We're here for the men's basketball game for Ball State. Now we got some women's basketball action, so a lot of fun today.
Yep, and speaking of Ball State, they're coming off of a win on Monday against Old Dominion. What was so important about that game? What led them to that victory?
Yeah, that was a big win for Ball State, and Old Dominion is a really good team. They're in the Sun Belt, and going into the season, they were ranked number 3 in that preseason poll. So that's about as close to a MAC game as you can get for Ball State to start off the season. Ball State won pretty swiftly. That was a 60-46 win for Ball State in that game. And yeah, it was really good for Ball State. Again, Old Dominion, a really good team. They beat Kent State last year and they beat Buffalo last year. But you take a look at some of the stats from that game, and Ball State, again, 60 points. They shot pretty good from the field, 43%, a little bit below their average. The three-point shooting, though, for Ball State was a little bit below the average, something that they're typically pretty good at. Of course, they're missing one of their best three-point shooters in Maddie Bischoff, but expect that to get better as we roll on through the season.
Yeah, and a player that's really important for Ball State is Allie Becky. Xander Woods caught up with her earlier this week on Inside the Chirp, so let's take a look at that.
You're heading into your senior year, and coming from a very successful team from last year and going into your senior year, what does this ride really look like for you going into your 4th year at Ball State?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. I just feel like it's my last one, like you said, and trying to give it my all with everything. And I feel like my senior year of high school, I was going through the same thing, but I was able to have more years after this, being fortunate enough to be playing basketball in college. But it's kind of the same mindset, just kind of like it's my last ride with these girls, and just trying to give it my all.
And with so much success already, being someone who's reached the 1,000-point club, someone who's already made the All-MAC first team, I might add. So what is there more for you to accomplish individually, you think?
Yeah, I mean, the goal is to probably be MAC Player of the Year. That's a big goal of mine. And yeah, just trying to help out my teammates as well. Just not only just scoring wise, but giving them the ball, trying to do the dirty work, getting after loose balls, even like the ones that don't show up in the stats. Just getting down, playing defense, and just doing the good things and the bad things that come with basketball.
This basketball pregame show is brought to you by TableX. TableX proudly supports the students of Ball State Sports Link.
Going back to Ball State, the last season recap, what stands out to you about last season?
Well, a lot of things, and the main thing is how good this team was. You look at their record, and they 16-2 conference record, 28-6 overall record for Ball State last year, and they finished second in the MAC regular season, ended up losing in the MAC semifinal to Kent State, who went on to win it all. But the stats, I mean, you look at them, and they're towards the top of the conference in a lot of different categories. The top one you see there, 72.7 points per game. That was ranked number 1 in the MAC last year. So this is a really good team offensively, as we just talked about, but also defensively. They can do everything. They could shoot, but they're also going to wear you down as a team, and they're just super special. They were special last year, and it's scary to think, but they might be better this year.
Yeah, and IU Indy maybe didn't have as solid of a record as Ball State did last year. What do you think is important for them moving forward and just kind of trying to improve on that?
I think the important thing is just to kind of forget what happened last season, because it was below the standards of what IU Indy has been used to. They had not had a losing season since the 2011 to 2012 season, so that was a long time ago. This is a program that does know success, and last year they did not get that. A 7-23 overall record, 5-15 in the conference, and toward the bottom of statistically in a lot of different categories. IU Indy was last year, so a lot to improve on. A big thing was they had a lot of blocks last year. We're number 1 in that category. category. However, for them, they just allowed too many points defensively. 75.1 points allowed per game defensively. That's never going to cut it. You're not going to win basketball games if you're letting up that many points each game, and so really have to clean it up defensively and also try to score more points offensively. I know that sounds really simple, right? But you got to start with defense to kick things off.
Yeah, and IU Indy, they've got a lot of good pieces working together. Their ranking doesn't necessarily show that. Looking at the Horizon League preseason poll, they are ranked 10th out of 11th. What do they need to do to move that ranking up?
Yeah, I think for IU Indy, and we talked about what they can do defensively to get better, but there are also different categories to get better in as well. You look at their shooting percentage from last year, field goal percentage 40%. From beyond the arc, they were at a 27%, and the free throws are really good. But for IU Indy, you talked about where they finished. They were 10th in that preseason poll. There are only 11 spots in that preseason poll, so not exactly where they want to be. They finished 10th in the Horizon League last year as well. So kind of right where you expect them to be. But I think this is the team that, as I talked about, this program, overall IU Indy, they hadn't had a losing record since a long time ago, more than 10 years ago. And so the first one we saw was last year. And so I think this is a program that knows how to win games. It was kind of a fluke last year. Now it's time to just step up and let the play on the court kind of speak for itself. I think we'll see some of that today.
Yeah, and back to Ball State, they've got a pretty big fan base. We've talked about that before. What do the expectations from those fans look like for this team?
I mean, the expectations for this Ball State team are sky high. You look at the MAC preseason poll, and Ball State, there they are, number one, atop all of them. They had 120 votes. They had 10 first-place votes in the conference. I mean, this is the clear-cut best team in the Mid-American Conference coming into this year. Penn State is right on their tail, and Toledo fell after they lost a couple of players and their coach as well. But Ball State, they retained a lot of talent. We talked about the season they had last year. It was phenomenal. I think they have gotten better this year, as I said before, which is a really, really scary thought, considering how their veterans have improved, and they have also brought in a lot of really key players.
Yeah, and not only are they successful in the Mid-American Conference, the mid-major polls have them at 3rd. What do they need to do to stay in those spots?
Yeah, I think what they need to do is what we saw them do in the first game against Old Dominion, and that is to go against non-conference opponents, people that are in the mid-major, like Old Dominion, and kind of go in there and show them who is boss. And that's exactly what Ball State was able to do. Once they enter MAC play, the same type of thing for Ball State, try to show its dominance on that side of things. But yes, as you saw, they're ranked number 3 in the mid-major poll. That is extremely high for this Ball State women's basketball team. So we talk about the expectations for the MAC. They're sky high. But also just in terms of women's basketball, everyone expects this team to be great, and for good reason, because they have a lot of awesome players.
Yeah, and what kind of pressure could this team be feeling from having rankings that high going into the season?
Yeah, it's a great question because, as you said, coming into a year with people expecting so much out of you, if you come up anywhere short of those expectations, then it's a tough thing to handle. So, as I said, the expectations are sky high. And in a game like Old Dominion, even though they won that game by double digits, people were leaving that game saying, "Oh, we didn't shoot that well, and our defense maybe looked good." That's because the expectations are so sky high. Really, what they got to do if you're in this Ball State women's basketball program, keep all the voices out of your ear. Let the talk inside the locker room be the talk that you hear. Flush everything else out. Know what Coach Brady Sully has to say, and kind of go off of his message. Play your brand of basketball, which they always do, and just continue to put the best effort on the floor game after game.
Yeah, and back to IU Indy, a player to look out for tonight in Katie Davidson. What makes her stand out on the court?
Yeah, Katie Davidson, a 5'10" guard and also a forward. They list her as 2 different things. She's from Indianapolis, Indiana, and she led her team in points last year with just over 16 for IU Indy. In the game against Evansville, she put up 19 points, so she was already above that mark. She also led her team in steals last year, and she was coming off of a season-ending injury the year prior, so was really trying to pick things back up. Katie Davidson was, and she picked up right where she left off, so she is a leader for this team. She is someone who has been here for a while, and expect to see a lot of her getting the ball today, trying to work against this really good Ball State defense.
Yeah, and somebody that we've talked about already tonight in Allie Becky for the Ball State Cardinals. What can we expect to see from her, and what makes her so different than everybody else?
Well, I mean, the first thing to look at is just the accolades she has from last year. She was All-MAC first team and on the MAC defensive team, so she could do it all over the floor. Some things to expect from her. Scoring, number 1. I mean, she could shoot the lights out. We already know that. But we talked about the defensive team that she was on last year, And I think having Nyla Hampton here, who is now gone with Michigan State, but having her here really taught Allie Becky that, hey, this is how you play defense. You got to really step it up this way. And she did a really great job with that. A lot of block shots last year, a lot of steals, and her effort on the court is relentless. You see very few people in the MAC and really all around women's basketball who put the same effort on the floor game after game like Allie Becky does. She leaves her heart on the floor. She has a heart of a lion. Even though she's a Cardinal, she has a heart of a Cardinal too. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, her effort is the main thing to watch out for, and she is just so talented.
Yeah, and somebody that knows her talent as well as the rest of the team better than anybody is Coach Brady Sally. One of the voices of Ball State women's basketball, Sam Niger, caught up with him earlier this week. Here's what he had to say.
Thanks, JJ. Coach, your team had the largest margin of victory in a MAC Sun Belt Challenge game to start the season. What was the key to your team's success so early?
Yeah, I thought we were pretty good defensively. I loved how hard we played. I thought we had a lot of multiple efforts, which is something we preach on the defensive end. You know, so when you put those things together and with some size, some strength, some length that we have, a lot of good things happened. And I just like the way we competed and overall took care of that home court.
Now facing a team in IU Indy that finished 10th in the preseason polls in the Horizon League, how do you make sure your team doesn't overlook the Jaguars?
I mean, they just scored 101, so goodness gracious, if that doesn't get your attention. You know, it's going to be almost polar opposite of what we just played. They stretch you out, they shoot it. They're going to put a lot of pressure from that part of what we do defensively. We'll be able, I think, to use our size, but that size is going to have to defend on that end. So we'll get their best, and it's early in the season, so those preseason polls don't mean anything. They've got a really brand new team, a lot of newcomers. Some good players that are holdovers. So last year is a heck of a game. It's in-state, so it's going to be all that and more.
Thank you, Coach. We appreciate it.
All right, take care.
Now, Jordan, Ball State is the clear favorite going into this game, I would say. What do both teams have to do to hopefully pull out the win tonight?
Yeah, I think for Ball State, you just heard it kind of from Coach Sally there, but a lot of new players on this team, right? And so you got to try to make sure that you get all those players who are all individually really talented to come together as one unit and play very well. We saw that against Old Dominion a couple of days ago. But for Ball State, trying to get those players to mesh and really get things going early on in the season. This is Ball State's second game of the season, so still a lot of time to get things going. And on the IU Indy side, kind of like what we saw, some of the keys that we saw from the game prior for men's basketball, where I think that for IU Indy being the underdogs in this game, you got to come out and be aggressive. You know Ball State on paper is better than you, but in your head, that's where you got to think, all right, we're better than this team. You have to have that mentality, that dog mentality to come out here and try to punch Ball State in the face in its home arena. And I think that if they're able to come out and be aggressive, play strong in the first 3 minutes and on, then I think that IU Indy has a really good chance to try to win this basketball game.
Yeah, and that's all the time we have for you tonight on the pregame show presented by TableX. AJ Switek, Ryan Stojets, and Max Gilly will be with you on the other side. We'll see you soon, but first, here is the brand new Ball State intro video.
Can you feel it? That energy. The current that flows through our state. It powers our love for the game of basketball. From barnyard hoops to the streets of downtown Indy. But in Muncie, all charges lead here. Worthen Arena. Thousands of screaming fans, all charged by a single spark. That spark, a Becky bucket, a Richard rebound, a Bischoff buzzer beater. That spark is just the beginning. So let me ask you again, can you feel it?